Hello, and welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, a place where we share stories of things that go bump in the night. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy the stories. Welcome back. In the last episode, I told you about some of my experiences growing up, and I introduced you to Grandma Molnick's, the most active ghost in our house. During this episode, I'd like to tell you one more Grandma Molnick story, and then tell you about some of the other ghostly experiences we've had in our home. But before I do that, let's talk about ghosts and ghost hunters. These days, you can't turn around without seeing a brand new paranormal investigation television show, right? Some of them I personally think are a little hokey. Some of them are a little angry, but some of them actually do a good job. And trying to produce a show about paranormal activity is hard because ghosts don't show up on cue. So we've lived in our home for about 30 years, and we've probably had 36 or so experiences. That means we've averaged a little over one experience a year, and we live here. So we're here night after night after night. These investigators have a short window of time to try and find something, whether or not the ghost is cooperating. So as you read my stories, remember that these stories are not an everyday occurrence, and give these paranormal investigators a break. They're doing the best they can. So one more thing before I get off my virtual soapbox. If you are taking part in an investigation yourself, please remember to be respectful of the ghosts around you. These are people too, only they're deceased, and they deserve your courtesy and your respect. You are entering their space and asking for their help. Treating them correctly goes a long way to getting some of that help. Okay, off the soapbox and on to the stories. Several years ago, my husband and I decided to take a road trip out west. My married daughter, her husband, and their nearly year-old son house sat. At the time, we had 2 large Bernese mountain dogs and 2 cats. She had a chocolate lab who was also house sitting with them. Her husband had volunteered to spend the evening with a bunch of Boy Scouts, but was planning to be home by late evening. My daughter had put her son to bed in his crib and then came downstairs to watch some television in the living room, which is located right underneath the bedroom they were using. I was in Moorcroft, Wyoming, really close to Devil's Tower, when I received her phone call. "Mom," she exclaimed, "I just heard footsteps upstairs in our bedroom." I knew that she wasn't talking about real footsteps because she wouldn't have called me, she would have called the police. And with 3 large dogs sitting in the house with her, the likelihood of someone breaking in was basically non-existent. Before I could ask her, she told me that all of the animals were in the living room with her, the doors were locked, the motion detector light on the front porch had not gone off, and no one else was in the house. I did remind her that I was in Wyoming, and I wasn't much use for her being that far away, but I knew she wasn't calling for that kind of help. You know, I reasoned, it's probably Grandma Molnick's. She hasn't been active since you guys all grew up and moved away. There's a baby in the house. She's probably checking on him. With her phone in her hand and me on the other line, she went upstairs to check on her son. He was sleeping soundly, a sweet smile on his tiny lips. The room was undisturbed, and the atmosphere was not frightening. "He's fine," she whispered into the phone as she closed the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. "You're probably right. It probably was just Grandma Molnick's." This same daughter had a couple of other experiences with ghosts in the house, and usually when she was home alone. My daughter was home from college for the fall. Her school track was winter-spring, so she got to spend the fall at home. One morning she had slept in, so she grabbed some breakfast, turned on HTV, and made herself comfortable in the living room. About a half hour had passed when she heard someone pull up in our driveway. Then she heard footsteps on the porch. She assumed it was just a delivery and, since she was still dressed in her pajamas, decided not to answer the door. She heard someone place a package on the porch in front of the door, and then they rang the doorbell. The footsteps retreated, and she heard them pull out of the driveway. A few minutes later, she went out of the living room and down the hall to the front door. She put her hand on the front doorknob when she heard a man's voice from up the stairs behind her ask, "Who's at the door?" "Just UPS," she responded automatically, and then opened the door to retrieve the package. It wasn't until she was on the porch that she realized there were no cars in the driveway, which meant she was home alone. She explained to me that she sat on the porch for quite a while, afraid of going back into the house, but then she decided that she would rather face a ghost than the cold November weather we were having. She went back in with the package and had no further interaction with him that day. Although after that, she said she often felt a male presence watching over her. She didn't feel threatened, only protected. We wondered who that male presence could be. And soon after that experience, I believe I found out. As a full-time author, my schedule has never been 9 to 5. I often stay up late or get up early in order to finish a chapter or an idea. Sometimes those ideas come to me in the middle of the night, so instead of tossing and turning, I just get up and go to my office and write. One night, a little after midnight, I had an idea. I climbed out of bed and, accompanied by my Bernese mountain dog, Riley, went upstairs to the remodeled walk-up attic that housed my office. My desk was just outside an alcove, so the inside corner of my desk lined up with the wall in front of me. Against that wall was a small couch, which was immediately occupied by Riley. Riley was so big that his feet and his tail hung off the side of the couch. He sighed happily and settled down for a snooze. He was fairly used to my nocturnal habits. I work with 2 monitors, so I was able to peek through the space between them and see the couch and Riley. The attic staircase was to my right, about 10 feet, and it was diagonally about 12 feet from the couch. The staircase didn't have a banister, so if someone would walk up from the second floor, you would first see their head, then their shoulders, and more of them as they climbed each stair. So, with Riley snoozing, I went to work. I had a light on above my desk, but the rest of the area was fairly dim. At about 4:30 in the morning, Riley lifted his head up, looked at the attic staircase, and wagged his tail. I immediately thought that it was my husband checking on me, but I wanted to finish the paragraph I was working on, so I didn't turn right away. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a large man. He was huge, well over 6 feet tall, and built like a linebacker on a football team. He was wearing a flannel shirt, red buffalo checked, underneath a pair of farmer's overalls. I turned to get a better look at him, and he was gone. Taking a deep breath, I decided that since I had been up all night writing ghost stories, he must have been my imagination. Then I remembered. Riley saw him first. About 3 months later, I met up with a man whose grandparents built the house. He asked me if I'd run into his grandmother lately. I replied that I hadn't, but perhaps there were other relatives hanging around the house, and I proceeded to tell him about the man in the attic. But before I could get to the description, he stopped me and asked, was he wearing a flannel shirt and overalls? I have to admit, my heart went to my throat. Yes, he was, I replied. Was he missing his right hand? He asked. I shrugged. He was not all the way up the stairs, and I could only see his left side, I replied. But the overall impression I had was that he was really muscular. Those of you of a certain age would understand as I compared him to Hoss Cartwright from the Bonanza series. He was just a really big man. So we continued with the conversation. My grandfather lost his right hand in a farming accident, he told me. So he had to do everything with his left arm, which made it really muscular. I'm sure, Terri, that you just met my grandfather, Molnix. So, hello there, Grandpa Molnix. Just as an aside, about a month after I saw Grandpa Molnix, I had been invited to speak at a writers' conference in Chicago. Also asked to speak was Dale Kaczmarek, who's the president of the Ghost Research Society. Dale has been investigating paranormal phenomena since 1975, before anyone else thought it was cool. Dale has investigated almost 4,100 cases around the world. So basically, Dale knows his stuff. Dale came in and listened to my presentation, so I did the same and listened to his, which was much cooler because he had all kinds of photographic evidence and EVP, electric voice phenomena, samples. After his presentation, we had a chance to chat, and I told him about my attic experience. He explained to me that rods in the corners of our eyes pick up different light spectrums because of their elongated shape. These rods are more sensitive to the spectrum that paranormal phenomena would fall into. So when you see something out of the corner of your eye, it doesn't mean that you're imagining it. It means that you are picking up the movement with the right lens for viewing it. He also told me that when I turned to get a better view, Grandpa Molnix could have still been standing there, but I was looking at him through the wrong lens. Really? I didn't want to know that. Was that the last of Grandpa Molnix? I don't think so. There have been numerous times when the dogs will walk to the base of the staircase, look up, and wag their tails at something or someone we can't see. One night, when I was working late, I had the distinct feeling that someone was watching me, and I couldn't get any writing done. So finally, I turned toward the area and said, I'm really trying to get some work done, but I can't with you standing there and watching me. So if you wouldn't mind, the feeling went away, right away. At least our ghosts are polite. Speaking of polite, a couple of summers ago, we had a ferocious thunderstorm come through the area. It knocked out the power to a lot of homes in the area, ours included. It was late, about 11 p.m., and I was tired, so I decided to try to sleep in our bedroom. The day had been hot, and now it was muggy. Our bedroom was like a sauna, especially with no air conditioning or fans available. After about 30 minutes, I gave up and went downstairs. The couches had all been claimed by other family members who had decided earlier that the second floor would be too warm. So, along with Riley, we made our way out to the deck. The storm was long gone, and there was a lovely breeze outside. We had a large 3-person glider that was just long enough to make a perfect bed. I laid on the glider, Riley laid down on the deck next to me, and in a few moments, I was asleep. As odd as it may sound, I woke up about an hour later, and I was cold. So I hurried back into the house, pretty sure I could sleep in my room now. I first went to the bathroom, and then, when I walked past the back door towards my room, I saw that Riley was there, waiting for me. I smiled at him and said, well, hello. You know how you talk to your dog? Hello, came the deep voice from the kitchen. I quickly turned my phone flashlight on the area. No one was there. I walked into the living room and my husband woke and said, hey, is everything okay? I felt immediate relief. Oh, did you just say hello to me? I asked. No, he replied, I just woke up. Relief gone. When I shared the story with the rest of the family the next morning, my daughter told me that when she was in the kitchen that night and taking some silverware from the drawer, she felt someone come up behind her. It's tight quarters there. We have cabinets on one side and an island on the other. She felt someone put her hand on her back, like someone stopping you from stepping back and running into them. She thought it was her dad, but when she turned around, no one was there. I have some more family stories to share, so tune into episode 3. Thank you for stopping by Terri Reid's Attic. If you enjoyed the stories, please click like and please subscribe. And please look below for links and more videos. Until next time, from ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, good Lord, protect us.